escaped from between her lips as she entered a sequence of commands into her tablet computer. The targets are all set up, so as soon as Oz gets here, if he gets here, we can start. Oz Romero was perpetually late. It didn't matter if he was going to a class, doctor's appointment, church, or movie. Timeliness and Oz simply didn't mix. Most of the time it didn't matter, but this morning, Colt had forced himself out of bed at 5:30. If he had to be on time, he expected the same from Oz. Colt flipped his goggles up over his helmet as he watched the gravel road. He wanted to give Oz the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was having engine trouble, or he'd stopped to help someone change a flat tire. Or maybe he was just late, like always. Where is he? He won't answer his phone, which means he's probably still asleep. What do you want to do? I don't know, Danielle said. I mean, we're out here and everything is set up. You might as well run the course. If he doesn't show up by the time you have to refuel, we can head back. She was about to climb into the cab and sit next to the heater when a black Jeep crested a hill. Dust plumed and oversized tires crunched across the desert floor, leaving a massive trail in the Jeep's wake. At the last possible moment, Oz pulled off the road and parked between a saguaro cactus and Grandpa's pickup. You're late, Danielle said with a hand on her hip. Oz shrugged and cut the engine before he gulped down the last of a protein shake and wiped his mouth with the back of his sleeve. Sorry. It wasn't much of an apology. Usually he would have made some outlandish excuse and then laughed it off. He hopped out of the Jeep, his eyes distant. He looked tired, or was it depressed? Either way, it wasn't normal. Oz was typically upbeat, whether the occasion called for it or not. What's wrong? Were you up all night hunting zombies again? Colt asked, referring to Zombie Extermination Squad, a video game that the three of them played together more often than they cared to admit. Oz looked at him and frowned, as though trying to gauge if he was serious. You heard about the incident, right? Colt hadn't, but that wasn't unusual. Oz had access to information the rest of the world didn't know existed. His dad was the director of an organization called Chaos, Central Headquarters Against the Occult and Supernatural. They were a bit like the CIA or the FBI, but instead of going after drug cartels or spying on the Russians, they protected the world from nightmares like bioengineered monsters, alien life forms, and sparkling vampires. Can you give us a hint? Colt asked. The way things had been going lately, he half expected Oz to tell him that Godzilla had been spotted off the shores of Tokyo. Turn on the radio and you'll see. Oz slipped into a jumpsuit that he had pulled out of his duffel bag. It didn't look like it was going to fit his 6'4" frame or his enormous shoulders, but he managed to squeeze in and zip it up before he slipped on a pair of size 15 boots. Danielle turned the key in the ignition of the pickup, and static blasted through the speakers as she tried to find a news station. Thousands are seeking refuge, shutting down roads and freeways leading from Cedar Rapids and surrounding communities, despite the combined efforts of local law enforcement and the National Guard. Already airports in Des Moines, Minneapolis, Chicago, and Kansas City have been overrun with people looking to get as far away from the reactor core as possible. Reactor core? Colt asked. What happened? They're telling everybody that there was a leak in a nuclear power plant, but that's just a cover, Oz said. For what? Danielle asked. After all, a meltdown at a reactor core could be catastrophic. But if that was just a story, the truth had to be devastating. They think someone released a virus. What, like the bird flu or something? Colt asked. Oz shook his head. Worse, and it's spreading fast. Chapter 2. Oz quickly told them that the first known case of the virus had been documented 2 weeks prior in a remote village outside of Bangkok. An old woman contracted a fever, and by nightfall, her skin was covered in boils. Breathing became increasingly difficult, and within 48 hours, she was dead. 3 others got sick before government authorities were notified, and once that happened, the village was quarantined. If the rumors were true, at least a dozen infected people had been shot and their bodies burned. Without a corpse, there was no...